All right, class, settle down. Today's survival practical is straightforward. Extract the venom sacs from this Crenari death slug without dying. You have 1 hour. Begin. Professor Varnock's 8 tentacles curled excitedly as he made the announcement, his translucent face lit with a teacher's enthusiasm that only made the horror worse. Around him, students of every imaginable morphology gasped, shuddered, or instinctively recoiled. All except one. Sarah Chen, Earth's lone exchange student and proud Death Worlder, didn't flinch. Instead, she stood up, rolled her sleeves, and casually strolled toward the containment field holding a creature that looked like a hybrid of an eel, a nightmare, and raw malice. Her classmates recoiled in unison. Sarah peered at the pulsing, mucus-covered creature. She said thoughtfully, reaching in without a second thought. This guy kind of reminds me of banana slugs back home, just, angrier. 2 insectoid twins from the moon world of Zygiath immediately fainted, collapsing with synchronized chittering thuds. Sarah shrugged and grabbed the provided scalpel. Come on, folks, it's not that bad. Watch and learn. What followed was part surgical masterclass, part psychological horror film. With a disturbingly cheerful hum, Sarah pinned the death slug, slid the scalpel across its ridged back, and delicately extracted its iridescent venom sacs while dodging gnashing mandibles and spiteful acid spit, all without breaking a sweat. Meanwhile, her alien classmates huddled in the corner, some weeping, others whispering prayers to their ancestral star gods. One particularly fluffy student began stress-shutting their entire coat. Done, Sarah chirped, holding up a vial of shimmering green neurotoxin. Where do I put this, Prof? Professor Varnock, who had remained uncharacteristically silent during the entire demonstration, blinked his eye stalks slowly, as if emerging from a trance. Ah, yes, just. Set it on my desk. Carefully. Class dismissed. Indefinitely. As the students filed out, some stumbling, others carried, Sarah overheard frantic whispers trailing behind her. She touched it, with bare skin. Forget that, did you see her smile while slicing it open? I heard humans drink poison for fun. It's called alcohol or something. Sarah couldn't help but smirk. If they thought this was terrifying, wait till they learned about crocodile handling. Or boxing kangaroos. Australia had trained her well. As she packed up her kit, she noticed Professor Varnock still staring at her with a distant expression, his eye stalks twitching, his mouth parts slightly agape. Everything okay, Professor? Sarah asked innocently. Miss Chen, he began slowly. When the Stellar Concord Board approved this exchange program with Earth, I was skeptical. I feared your species might be volatile, but now I see I may have underestimated your potential. Are all humans as resilient as you? Sarah tapped her chin thoughtfully. Well, I am from Australia. The color drained from Varnock's already semi-turnaround skin. Icy? He whispered in awe. Update your profile and perhaps suggest some amendments to the Galactic Hazard Index. Sarah walked out of the lab, her mood high. If this was their reaction to a simple biology lab, she couldn't wait to show them her more exciting hobbies, like volcano surfing, chainsaw juggling, or underwater MMA. One thing was becoming clear. Earthlings weren't here to adapt to the galaxy. The galaxy was going to have to adapt to them. And this was only Monday. By noon, the entire student body of Stellar Concord Academy had heard the tale of Sarah Chen's slug dissection. The cafeteria, usually a hub of chatter and clanking nutrient trays, was eerily quiet as she strolled in, her presence part legend, part cautionary tale. She plopped her tray down beside her usual crew of alien classmates with a bright smile. Hey gang, what's for lunch? Exop, a shimmering gelatinous blob with retractable eye stalks, quivered nervously. Today's meal is nutrient paste and an unidentified protein source. Sarah poked the grayish lump on her tray. Reminds me of my high school cafeteria. Only this probably won't give me food poisoning. Probably. Her alien friends shared looks of mild panic. You willingly consumed toxins at your learning institution? Asked Croxton, a spindly insectoid with double mandibles and a flair for melodrama. Sarah laughed. Oh, sweetie, if you think that's wild, wait till you hear about college parties. We once made a drink that glowed in the dark. It may or may not have been safe. The table collectively tensed, eye stalks widening, tendrils curling, one creature even venting steam. But why? Gurgled Gloop, a sentient puddle who had only recently learned how to experience emotions and now regretted it. Sarah leaned back and shrugged. For fun. Humans like to push boundaries, you know? Adrenaline, chaos, mild risk of explosive death. Speaking of which, anyone want to try extreme sports this weekend? The silence was deafening. We could go skydiving or bungee jumping. Ooh, how about cliff diving? Exop's eye stalks drooped. My species evolved on a gas planet with no solid terrain. The concept of a cliff is traumatic. Fair, Sarah nodded. Okay, less intense then. Rock climbing, whitewater rafting, paintball? Paintball? Sebe, a crustacean-looking alien with anxiety antenna, twitched involuntarily. Sarah's face lit up. Yes, you run around shooting each other with paint pellets. It's like war, but nobody dies. Usually. Glebe let out a wet squeal. You simulate combat for recreation? Sarah blinked. When you put it like that, it does sound questionable. But trust me, it's a blast. Before anyone could object, the cafeteria doors whooshed open, and in slithered Professor Varnock, looking flustered and twitching, as if someone had tried to explain memes to him again. Miss Chen, he called, scanning the room. A word, if you please. Sarah popped up cheerfully. Sure thing, Prof. What's up? Varnock hesitated, clearly struggling with something deeply bureaucratic. The Concord's academic board has raised concerns. After your, performance in xenobiology, they fear you may be too advanced for our standard curriculum. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Because I didn't freak out over a venomous murder slug? Precisely, Varnock said gravely. They are discussing the creation of a new curriculum track, something more suited to your, species. We were thinking of calling it Deathworlder Specialization. Sarah's face lit up like a child at a flamethrower store. That sounds amazing. When do we start? The professor sighed deeply. His kind didn't breathe air, but somehow still managed to sigh. Very well. I'll inform the board. Also, there's talk of inviting you to deliver a guest lecture on human recreational activities, perhaps extreme sports? Sarah's grin stretched unsettlingly wide. Oh, I have so many ideas. As Varnock slithered away, muttering about liability waivers and planetary insurance policies, Sarah returned to her table and rubbed her hands together. All right, who wants to learn how to juggle chainsaws? A collective groan filled the room. Eye stalks lowered, tentacles covered ears. One student attempted to phase out of existence in protest. The moment echoed throughout the cafeteria, undoubtedly reaching nearby star systems through sheer psychic despair. Just another day in the life of Sarah Chen, humanity's unofficial ambassador of terror, chaos, and unapologetic enthusiasm. It began innocently enough. As part of her ongoing campaign to culturally enrich Stellar Concord Academy, Sarah Chen had proposed a themed event, Earth Food Night, mild to wild. The administration, eager to foster interspecies understanding and blissfully unaware of the implications, approved it without hesitation. The cafeteria was redecorated with Earth flags, digital flame motifs, and, inexplicably, several inflatable chili peppers. Sarah stood proudly at the front table wearing an apron that read, "Warning, contents may spontaneously combust." Welcome everyone, she said, gesturing to the buffet line. Tonight, you'll experience the full spectrum of human spice levels. We start with jalapeno poppers and work our way up to Carolina Reapers. Any volunteers? There was a moment of awkward silence, until a translucent blob from Nebulon A4 rolled forward. I'll try, it gurgled bravely. His name was Blorit, a culinary adventurer known for once eating a moon cactus on a dare. Sarah smiled. You're gonna love this. Let's start easy. Try a popper. Blorit slurped it up, then froze. His entire body shifted from lavender to neon green, then rapidly cycled through magenta, blue, and ultraviolet. A faint humming filled the room as he began levitating slightly. Is this what dying feels like? He whimpered. Nah, Sarah said cheerfully, just the endorphins kicking in. Want to try the ghost pepper salsa? Blorit didn't respond. He simply phased into a different frequency and vibrated through the wall. Panic rippled through the cafeteria. Several students dropped their trays and fled. A group of squid-like Glarans began excreting emergency mucus as a stress response. Professor Varnock activated the containment alarm for unspecified cultural incidents. Medical Bay, we have a level 5 culinary emergency, he said into his communicator. Yes, again. Amidst the chaos, Sarah calmly sampled a spoonful of ghost pepper salsa. Bit of a kick, she muttered, fanning her mouth. Could use more lime. The medics arrived with coolant foam and containment suits, but Blorit had already reconstituted in the aquatics lab, claiming to have seen time in reverse. I watched my own lunch order itself, he whispered. The next day, spicy food resistance was quietly added as an elective survival course. But Sarah wasn't finished. The incident only raised her status. Students whispered in awe. She eats acid recreationally. Her taste buds are sentient? She smiled through a habanero. Smiled. Not content with culinary shock alone, Sarah decided to expand the exchange night. Her next offering? Earth music. Her roommate, Sonari, a delicate waveform being from the harmonic cluster, had asked what Earth's sonic culture was like. Oh, we've got all kinds, Sarah said. Classical, hip-hop, rock, jazz, metal. Sonari pulsed with interest. You make music? From metal? Not quite, Sarah grinned. Here, listen. She hit play on her tablet. The cafeteria was immediately assaulted by the guttural blast of a Scandinavian death metal band. The sound waves shredded the ambient light fields, cracked a support beam, and sent several sentient plants into premature pollination. Sonari, instead of recoiling, vibrated with rapture. It's beautiful, so chaotic, so structured, so primal. He began to harmonize at a sub-bass frequency that caused several glasses to levitate. Nearby students collapsed from sensory overload. Someone whispered, I think I can taste colors now. Professor Varnock had to be physically restrained from pulling the fire alarm. By the end of the night, half the campus had discovered tinnitus. The other half had discovered enlightenment. Either way, Sarah's mixtape downloads skyrocketed. Miss Chen, Varnock said the next morning, still slightly twitching, I'm not sure the Galactic Concord intended for cultural exchange to include psychological warfare. Pfft, that was just melodic aggression. Wait till you hear our karaoke nights. Varnock's entire body dimmed by 3 lumens. It was official. Sarah Chen wasn't just a student. She was a phenomenon, an ongoing hazard, a cultural singularity. And she was just warming up. The Galactic Concord's Cultural Integration Committee had expected the exchange students to share soothing rituals, meditation, cuisine, maybe some planetary poetry. What they did not expect was to have their sonic infrastructure tested to collapse by Earth's most chaotic cultural export, metal music. It began, as these things often did, with an innocent question. Sarah's roommate, Sonari, was a species of symphonic resonance, a being of pure harmonic energy whose every mood manifested as song. One evening, while pulsing gently in ultraviolet hues, Sonari asked, "Sarah, what is Earth's finest form of music?" Without hesitation, Sarah grinned. "Oh, you're gonna love this. It's called metal." Sonari brightened. "Metal? Like forged instruments of sound?" "Something like that," Sarah replied, pulling up her Earth playlist of legendary mayhems. She hit play. What followed was an audio detonation that shattered the peaceful quiet of Dormitory Ring 7. The opening scream of a deathcore track howled through the air like a banshee with a flamethrower. The bass drop shook the floor. Crystalline light fixtures vibrated themselves into dust. Several sentient ferns evacuated their pots and began a migration. Sonari immediately began to glow in complex polyrhythms. "It's beautiful," they harmonized in a 3-octave tone, levitating with excitement. "It's like an angry comet screaming poetry at the sun." The neighbors weren't as enthusiastic. Within 2 minutes, 2 walls cracked. The auto-lockdown protocol failed because the beat disrupted the biometric ID. Professor Varnock called campus security, convinced an interdimensional rift had opened. By the end of the night, 6 students had developed tinnitus, 3 had spontaneous nosebleeds, and 1 evolved gills. Sarah simply nodded to the beat, mouthing every lyric. The incident was officially labeled Sonic Cultural Collision Alpha. The next day, Sarah found herself summoned to Dean Zarthan's office. The dean, a normally composed being who resembled a floating translucent jellyfish in a cloak, looked like he hadn't slept in several cycles. "Miss Chen," he began slowly, "you broadcast a scream-based war chant across the academic district." Sarah tilted her head. "You mean that solo? That was tame. I didn't even get to the bagpipe metal fusion tracks." Zarthan's glow dimmed 3 shades. "I had to issue sonic dampeners to the physics wing. Half our species can hear in infrared. One of our professors spent the night singing in binary." Sarah shrugged. "Welcome to Earth Core." But despite the chaos, something strange happened. Word spread. Students who had never danced found themselves strangely entranced. A tentacled student in political science began practicing air guitar. A crystalline historian whispered, "I felt something awaken inside me." Sarah, ever the instigator of glorious disruption, saw an opportunity. That weekend, she held the first Galactic Metal Night. Students of every shape and species gathered in the courtyard amphitheater. Sarah wore a spiked jacket. Sonari shimmered like a live equalizer. The opening track thundered out, and no one ran. Not this time. The crowd surged. Some danced. Others vibrated. One tried headbanging and dislocated 2 necks, but declared it worth it. Even Dean Zarthan, observing from afar, tapped a pseudopod in rhythm, though he'd deny it later. By the time the final chorus hit, the stars themselves seemed to pulse with the beat. The next day, the campus holoboard updated its elective listings. Cultural Studies, Introduction to Human Sound Warfare. Instructor, Guest Lecturer, S. Chen. Sarah read the notification and smirked. We're getting somewhere. It wasn't just about music anymore. Something deeper was taking root. The galaxy was beginning to understand that humanity wasn't just loud. It was unapologetically alive. The intergalactic collegiate games were supposed to be a symbol of harmony, a friendly, if slightly absurd, competition between species. Part athletics, part physics experiment, part cosmic circus. Each event was tailored to highlight the strengths of the participating species: the weightless twirl of the Etherians, the multi-limb vaulting of the Drakari, the thought-powered sprinting of the Cerebrax. This year, for the first time in its millennium-long history, a human was competing. Her name was Sarah Chen. As she stepped onto the starting platform, wearing a tracksuit patched with Earth flags and warning labels, a hush fell over the stadium. Her competitors, towering, glowing, and multi-eyed, eyed her with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. Human? What's she doing here? She's from a death world, right? Shouldn't there be waivers? Sarah cracked her knuckles and smiled. Let's do this. For Earth. The first challenge was the 17-dimensional gravity maze, a favorite among the Valtari, who existed partially outside of standard space-time. The maze warped and twisted through dimensions that folded in on themselves, requiring competitors to shift their perspective faster than most species could blink. Sarah leapt into the maze and immediately parkoured off a folding wall, spun through a sideways gravity pocket, and dove into a tunnel that led both forward and backward. To onlookers, she seemed to vanish and reappear at random, always with forward momentum. To Sarah, it was like navigating London's underground on a bad map. "If I can find the Piccadilly line in rush hour," she muttered, "I can do this in my sleep." She finished first, by minutes. The next event was the Quantum Probability Dash, where racers ran on a track that existed in multiple states at once. Most competitors phased in and out of existence, trying to be in the right version of the race at the right time. Sarah? She just ran. "Trust your gut," she shouted mid-sprint, narrowly missing a collapsing timeline bubble, or whatever equivalent gut you have. She crossed every finish line simultaneously, creating a paradox that had to be resolved by a team of philosophy majors. The final event was the infamous psychic weightlifting. Competitors were tasked with lifting increasingly dense objects, using nothing but their minds. The reigning champion was a floating brain named Dr. Zoll, who had once moved a planet for fun. Sarah stepped up. "Miss Chen," the judge said, a crystalline cube with a monocle, intoned, "as you lack psychic ability, you may forfeit this challenge without shame." Sarah rolled her shoulders. "Nah, I've opened jars tighter than this. Let's roll." She stared at the object, a shimmering cube of compressed neutronium. Her brow furrowed, her hands clenched, veins bulged. And then, impossibly, it moved. A collective gasp spread through the arena. Species that couldn't breathe invented lungs just to gasp. Dr. Zethel dropped his monocle. Sarah grunted through clenched teeth. "I do not skip." Arm day. The cube levitated, barely, before slamming down with a seismic thunk. The crowd went silent, then erupted into a symphony of screeches, claps, bioluminescent cheers, and psychic fireworks. Sarah stood, panting, drenched in sweat, but triumphant. She has no telepathy. She bent the object with willpower. I heard she once fought gravity in a back alley and won. As medals were distributed, crafted from alloys Earth hadn't discovered yet, Sarah stood atop the podium, grinning ear to ear. "Speech?" someone yelled. Sarah leaned into the telepathic amplifier. "Back home, we say, it's not whether you win or lose." She paused dramatically. "But winning is pretty great." The crowd laughed, cried, combusted in awe, in the case of one flammable species. After the ceremony, alien media swarmed her. "Miss Chen, how did you survive the 17D maze? Is it true humans breathe fire during mating rituals? Will you marry me and help create a hybrid superspecies?" Sarah raised both hands. "One question at a time, please, and no hybrids until after finals." In the stands, Professor Varnock muttered, "We're going to have to rewrite the syllabus again." Sarah just winked. "Start with Chapter 1. Everything you knew about humans was wrong." The physics department had long known that Earth's influence on campus would eventually lead to disaster. They just didn't expect it to come in the form of a vending machine. It all started when Sarah Chen introduced her alien peers to coffee. Not the lab-approved, nutritionally balanced stimulant paste the university provided, but actual earth coffee. Dark, bitter, and brewed with enough caffeine to wake the dead, or at least rattle a comatose krillworm. Her first subject was Gazoplax, a photosynthetic being from a twilight planet where light was both food and religion. Sarah handed them a cup labeled Triple Espresso, drink at your own risk. Gazerplax took one sip. What followed would be logged in the Concord's historical archives under Event, Caffeine Cascade. The bean began to glow, then vibrate, then hover. By the moons, they gasped. I can see forever. I have thoughts inside my thoughts. I must clean. Gazerplax proceeded to reorganize the entire astrophysics library by gravitational constant, scrubbed the windows of Admin Ring 4 with their own bioluminescent tendrils, and delivered a 9-hour TED Talk on the socio-political implications of dust mites in warp-capable societies. I have seen your human god, they declared afterward. Its name is Espresso. It demands worship. Sarah nodded solemnly. Yeah, that tracks. Word spread. By the end of the week, Java Junction, a pop-up cafe powered by Earth Coffee and Pure Chaos, had opened in the university atrium. Run by Sarah and a dangerously enthusiastic vending bot named Brunton, it became the most controversial location on campus. The administration tried to ban it. The students rioted, with polite telepathic protests and a sit-in that blocked several gravitational corridors. The ban was quietly lifted. But the true catastrophe came during a student-led physics experiment inspired by caffeine-induced brainstorming, a proposed zero-gravity paintball tournament in the asteroid belt between the simulation domes. Sarah, naturally, was the organizer. It'll be fine, she said, strapping herself into a pressurized suit with neon pink stripes. We've got safety protocols. 2 protocols is not a plural, muttered Professor Varnock from a distance. The game began with an enthusiastic bang, literally as one student's launch pack misfired and sent them spiraling through an asteroid made of compressed helium. Sarah jetted across the field, spinning mid-air as she tagged an insectoid opponent with a bright yellow splat. Woo! Suck it, Zarnax! The splat ricocheted off the asteroid and struck a drone cam, which tumbled into a nearby nebula generator, which flared, creating a light burst mistaken for a supernova by the astronomy class next door. Panic ensued. One team surrendered telepathically. Another tried to re-enter the simulation dome at warp speed and got stuck in the gravity well. Bruton, the vending bot, went rogue and declared a new war against decaf. Sarah, oblivious, spun through a triple corkscrew, nailed the final shot, and yelled, "Earth wins." Later, during the disciplinary review, she sat across from Dean Zarthan with a calm smile. There was a spike in cross-dimensional turbulence, the dean said dryly. 4 species filed interstellar noise complaints, and the vending machine tried to stage a coup. Yeah, but did you see my shot? Zarthan rubbed his eye stalk. Miss Chen, your time here has altered several physical laws. I aim to inspire, she replied brightly. The dean sighed, passed her a datapad. The Concord has officially classified you as a Class 5 cultural hazard. Sarah gasped. Yes, that's higher than the feral meme virus from Arcturon 9. It also comes with teaching privileges. Sarah leaned back, hands behind her head. Better warm up the espresso machine. We've got minds to blow. From that moment on, the campus operated on 2 universal truths. Never challenge a human to a caffeine-fueled game of zero-gabe paintball. Never underestimate how much destruction can come from just one cup. What started as a quirky weekend hobby had spiraled, quite literally, into an institutional crisis. Sarah Chen's Extreme Sports Club had gone from ziplining through artificial jungle biomes to bungee jumping off orbital platforms. Each week the activities grew more creative and dangerous and wildly popular. Alien students from over 300 systems signed up, drawn by the irresistible promise of Earth-style thrill. None of them quite understood what they were signing up for. This week's activity? Vent, free-fall surfing on a micro-singularity. Note, waivers must be signed in triplicate. Survival not guaranteed, but strongly encouraged. Professor Varnock stood in front of the launch platform, clutching a clipboard and a headache. "Miss Chen," he said through gritted mandibles, "you are aware that black holes are not classified as sporting equipment, yes?" Sarah beamed, adjusting her gravity board, an illegal mod that glowed with neon skulls, and the words, "fall like you mean it." "Oh, relax," she said. "It's not a real black hole, just a stabilized microsingularity. It only bends some physics." "I had to file paperwork in 4 dimensions just to witness this," Varnock muttered. Around them, alien students wobbled in their magnetic boots, staring nervously at the swirling vortex below. Sarah clapped her hands. "All right, adrenaline junkies, here's the game. You ride the gravitational currents as long as possible without crossing the event horizon. Whoever gets closest without getting spaghettified wins." A pink blob wobbled. "What does spaghettified mean?" "Don't worry," Sarah said cheerfully. "You'll only feel it if you lose." Then she launched herself off the platform. The crowd gasped as she dove toward the singularity, her board slicing through warped gravity waves like a surfer catching a cosmic tsunami. Alarms blared. Nearby monitoring stations scrambled. "She's approaching the tidal shear limit," shouted a tech. "She's doing flips," shouted someone else. "Why is she flipping?" Sarah twisted midair, holding one arm out in a classic hang loose sign. Her board skimmed the edge of the horizon. Reality wobbled. Professor Varnock fainted. Moments later, Sarah shot back up through the grav lift, panting, laughing, helmet cracked from pressure stress, but still grinning. That was awesome. The crowd erupted, some in cheers, others in existential crisis. One student tried to give her a medal made of compressed dark matter. Another offered her a seat in their planetary government. By the end of the event, several conclusions were drawn. Sarah had become the first non-quantum being to ride a singularity wave. Spaghettification was added to the school glossary. And Stellar Concord's insurance premiums quadrupled. Dean Zarthan called an emergency faculty meeting. "She turned a black hole into a tourist attraction," he growled. "Next, she'll be base jumping off a sunspot." Sarah naturally overheard. "Wait, can we do that?" she asked. "No," Varnock groaned. "We're still waiting on the solar flare mitigation forms." But even with the risks, the Extreme Sports Club had done something unexpected. It had united the student body in the most chaotic, exhilarating way possible. Species who had never spoken before now bonded over shared near-death experiences. A tentacled alien high-fived a crystalline one. A gaseous being wrote an ode to Earth's gravity-defying bravado. And Sarah, watching the stars swirl beyond the platform, couldn't help but smile. This wasn't just fun. This was how humanity made history. One rule-breaking, physics-defying stunt at a time, the Stellar Concord's grand experiment had entered its next phase. For the first time in galactic history, a cohort of alien students was sent to Earth for a full immersion exchange program. The decision, spurred by the terrifying success of Sarah Chen's time at Stellar Concord Academy, was met with both enthusiasm and dread. In preparation, a special committee was formed to screen potential participants. Naturally, Sarah was made chair. "All right," she announced, addressing the nervous panel of deans and galactic ambassadors. "We need students who are brave, adaptable, and preferably not allergic to Earth's everything." The screening process was brutal. Candidates had to survive a pizza roulette challenge, featuring toppings from all major human controversies, endure the weather whiplash simulator, a randomized cycle of freezing rain, heat waves, and mild existential dread, and navigate the entire human internet unsupervised for 15 minutes. 3 candidates wept. One ascended to a higher plane. Another asked if memes were a form of ancient human weaponry. "Kind of," Sarah replied. Eventually, they selected a dozen students from various systems. Bright, curious, possibly insane. The moment they landed on Earth, everything went sideways. Day 1. One of the students, Zorp, tried to greet a flock of pigeons using a pheromone cloud. The pigeons retaliated violently. Day 2. Clix, a sentient gas, attempted to taste a habanero and ignited a nearby taco truck. Day 3. Tharnuk, an aquatic slug being, visited a water park. He has not been seen since. There are ripples. Still, the aliens persisted. Sarah took them on a tour of Earth's wonders: skate parks, food trucks, music festivals, and a surprise flash mob. The students were overwhelmed and fascinated. Sonari, the harmonic being, cried during a busker's saxophone solo. Group, who had once declared karaoke an act of violence, now performed nightly renditions of Bohemian Rhapsody. Even the most skeptical among them began to adapt. But nothing could have prepared them for the roller coaster. Zorp, bless his gelatinous curiosity, misinterpreted the ride as a human endurance trial. Wanting to impress, he stretched himself across multiple cars, forming a living, semi-sentient seat. The result? Fastest ride ever. Most traumatizing seating experience of my life. 10/10 would scream again. The footage went viral, not just on Earth, across the galaxy. Sarah found herself giving interviews to interstellar media outlets once again. "No, it wasn't a coordinated demonstration," she said. "Yes, Zorp will recover. No, we're not licensing him to theme parks. Yet." But amid the chaos and memes, something beautiful was happening. Alien students were bonding with their human hosts, laughing, learning, failing gloriously, and trying again. They went camping. They tried sushi. They learned about sarcasm, and immediately weaponized it. One night, around a backyard bonfire, Sarah looked out over the crowd of glowing, shifting, laughing students. A living constellation of chaos, confusion, and connection. "You guys doing okay?" she asked, sipping her marshmallow-crowned hot chocolate. Zorp burbled from inside a hammock. "I now understand why humans are both feared and beloved. You make no sense." Sarah clinked mugs with him. "Exactly." By week 3, the Stellar Concord issued an emergency amendment to their diplomatic guidelines. Cultural alert, level, human. Proceed with caution, carry snacks. Sarah framed it. After the cultural exchange hit its peak with bonfires, karaoke, and marshmallow diplomacy, most expected things to calm down. They didn't. Instead, they escalated into a televised diplomatic revolution. It began with Crix, a hive-mind entity from the Helix continuum. Curious, introverted, and deeply analytical, Crix sought to understand humanity's social dynamics. So naturally, they binged 20 seasons of reality TV in 3 Earth days. The results were immediate and unsettling. Humans willingly engage in staged emotional conflict for entertainment? Crix buzzed from every speaker in the student union. Sarah nodded. "Yep, and we eat snacks while we do it." "But why?" "Drama," she replied. "It's cathartic. We laugh, we cry, we judge each other from the couch. It's basically sport." Crix was stunned. "This is brilliant. You've turned emotional volatility into cultural bonding." That night, Crix submitted a proposal to the Stellar Concord. Proposal: implementation of reality entertainment protocols to resolve intergalactic tensions via televised competition. Subtitle: Diplomacy through Drama. It passed unanimously. Within weeks, the Concorde launched a galaxy-wide show, Intergalactic Iron Diplomats. The pitch? Two rival civilizations would face off, not in battle, but in competitive cooking, dancing, obstacle courses, or dating simulators. Judges included planetary ambassadors, celebrity chefs, and one sentient moon. Sarah was roped in as a consultant, and occasionally a surprise guest judge. The first episode featured a peace summit between two species that had been in a cold war for 7,000 years. Instead of negotiating borders, they had a bake-off. Chocolate lava cake versus antimatter soufflé. The lava cake won. A treaty was signed during the credits. The galaxy exploded in viewership. Alien civilizations that had never communicated began exchanging favorite episodes. Conflicts dissolved as enemies were forced to share a green room. Ratings soared. Earth's contribution to diplomacy was no longer law or philosophy. It was petty bickering in front of cameras. "Miss Chen," Dean Zarthon said one afternoon, watching an episode where two aquatic species argued over spice levels, "you've fundamentally changed intergalactic relations." Sarah sipped her soda. "I know. Isn't it awesome? Are we trivializing centuries of conflict?" Sarah tilted her head. "Or are we building empathy through passive-aggressive casseroles?" The dean groaned. And yet, even he had to admit, the results were undeniable. Tensions eased. Trade increased. One star system launched a spin-off show called Dancing with the Pulsars. Meanwhile, on Earth, the alien exchange students were now addicted to streaming. Sonari wrote a ballad about the Great British Bake Off. Zorp started a reaction channel where he emotionally analyzed Bachelor in Paradise. Gloop cried during every single makeover reveal. One night, after hosting a live viewing party in a school gymnasium with dual-language subtitles and scented popcorn, Sarah stood on stage and addressed the crowd. "Look, I know we're all from different worlds, literally, but tonight you screamed at the same plot twist, shipped the same chaotic couple, and cried when they rescued that alien pug. That's progress." The audience erupted in cheers, sonar pings, pheromone sprays, and one explosion of glitter. Later that week, the Concorde added a new department, Ministry of Interstellar Culture and Entertainment. Acting Director Sarah Chen. She accepted the title with grace and an improvised acceptance speech, live on camera, of course. "Remember," she said, standing beneath 1,000 stars, "when the universe gets too serious, just roll the cameras." By the time the exchange program neared its end, everyone assumed they had seen the peak of humanity's influence. They were wrong, because humanity's most powerful tool, the most absurd, chaotic, and unexpectedly unifying, hadn't even been deployed yet. Memes. It began as an offhand joke. Sarah Chen was explaining sarcasm to a group of confused alien students when she casually showed them a few of Earth's most infamous image macros. A frowning cat with the caption, "I had fun once. It was awful." A penguin awkwardly avoiding social interaction. A glittering frog declaring judgment with pixelated sunglasses. A collage of confused math equations floating around a woman's bewildered face, and, of course, a green ogre whose cultural relevance defied all logic. The room went quiet. Then clicks, a sentient gas cloud known for philosophical detachment, let out a sharp telepathic snort. Sarah couldn't tell if it was amusement or horror. "You mean," Click said slowly, "these chaotic expressions are how you communicate socially?" "Yep," Sarah grinned. "This is how Earth negotiates peace, one badly compressed image at a time." By sundown, a dozen alien species had created meme accounts. Zorp launched a page called That's So Human, filled with poorly captioned photos of Earth oddities like vending machines for socks, people walking into doors while texting, and inexplicably angry geese. Gloop discovered reaction GIFs and refused to speak without one. Sonari, the harmonic being, composed a 5-minute aria based entirely on the "This is fine" dog. the stellar concord didn't know what hit them. Embassies began quietly including meme translators in their communication staff. Galactic treaties were revised to include acceptable meme etiquette. Formal debates ended with passive-aggressive meme drops and diplomatic emoji reactions. And somewhere in the chaos, diplomacy got fun. Then, just when officials believed things couldn't spiral further, Sarah introduced the galaxy to flash mobs. The moment struck during a high-level peace summit where centuries of interstellar tension had failed to resolve. As representatives traded passive-aggressive quips and legalese, Sarah interrupted the silence with a single question. What if, instead of arguing, we all just danced? At first there was confusion, then laughter, then, inexplicably, music. Within minutes, dozens of delegates, some aquatic, some crystalline, some hovering upside down, were performing a coordinated routine to Uptown Funk. The footage spread faster than warp drive. In less than a week, diplomatic missions across the stars were breaking into synchronized routines in the middle of conferences, trade talks, and war de-escalation summits. Alien flash mobs popped up in meteor showers, floating markets, and even on the edge of a sunspot. No one knew who choreographed them. Everyone knew Sarah was to blame. She watched it unfold with the kind of quiet satisfaction reserved for prank masterminds and minor deities. One morning, she awoke to find herself named acting director of the newly formed Ministry of Interstellar Culture and Entertainment. She didn't even recall applying. The closing ceremony of the exchange program was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Thousands of beings, each wildly different in form and biology, gathered beneath a sky of swirling stars and holographic confetti. The amphitheater pulsed with music and light. Glitter drones zigzagged overhead while a choir of glowing ore beings harmonized in 17 simultaneous frequencies. Sarah stood at the center, dressed in a jacket covered with glowing meme patches from every corner of the galaxy. The crowd, buzzing with energy, fell silent as she stepped up to the mic. "We've done something special," she said. "We've connected, not just through language or logic, but through laughter, through dancing, through terrible puns and confusing inside jokes, through things that make no sense to anyone except us." She paused, scanning the crowd of tentacles, eyes, and swirling clouds. "If you can understand a meme," she added with a wink, "you can understand a species." The response was seismic. Cheers, shrieks, sonar clicks, color flashes, and a spontaneous chorus of synchronized clapping filled the air. Dean Zarthan, watching from the back, quietly updated Sarah's official classification in the Concord's database to Benevolent Chaos Catalyst. He didn't argue with the label, no one did. As the ceremony turned into a galaxy-spanning dance party, Sarah leaned against a railing and watched aliens high-five, link arms, and attempt the cha-cha slide with varying degrees of success. She sipped her drink and smiled. This was how it should be: messy, loud, hilarious, and perfectly, unmistakably human.